Hello and welcome. I've been following Trisha Paytas literally since she started her YouTube channel in, I want to say it was like 2008. And she like popped up on my feed one day on YouTube. Maybe it was in 2007. I don't know. I can't remember. But I remember her first video popping up on my feed and being like, yes, I like this girl. And it's so amazing to see like where she came from and where she is now. Yes, I am wearing a Trisha Paytas fan shirt that I got from Etsy. When I was trying to figure out whose natal chart I was going to look at next, a lot of people, especially on TikTok, they were like, "Ooh, you should do a synastry reading with Ethan Klein and Hassan Piker." And I was like, first of all, I didn't even know they had a podcast together. I wasn't aware that the feud was happening until after I made that podcast and people started commenting about it. And like when I Googled like Ethan Klein, I was like, oh, that's the guy from Frenemies. If I'm being totally honest, I have not watched a single episode of Frenemies except for the clips. I watched all of Trisha Paytas' YouTube videos and I watch her podcast now. But I remember watching a few clips of Frenemies and being like, why is he being so condescending to her? This is weird. I don't like this. I know that they had like some sort of feud and she ended up leaving. I don't know what the whole story was there. But anyway, I'm probably never going to do an analysis of Ethan Klein's natal chart. Also, okay, so I ended up going down the rabbit hole. Like I watch these people's content, but like I don't know what's going on. So Trisha Paytas is married to Moses, who I just found out is Hyla, I don't know how to say her name, Hyla's brother. And Hyla is married to Ethan Klein. I didn't know that. I guess maybe I should have known that, but I didn't know that there was like, would that make them like siblings-in-law? I don't know, whatever. I think the only logical conclusion that we can come to after all of these like internet feuds between these people is that Trisha Paytas should have a podcast with Hassan Piker. Honestly, I would watch that. Okay, so anyway, we're going to be looking at Trisha Paytas' natal chart today, so let's get into it. All right, here we go. I'm going to put the chart right here. So I'm going to go through this a little bit differently today. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to look at the ruler of the ascendant. The ascendant is at 21 degrees Virgo. Notice it's also conjunct the South Node. We're going to get to that. But the ascendant is in Virgo. The ruler of Virgo is Mercury. And where's Mercury in this chart? If you look up at the top, it's in the 10th house in Gemini. Even before I pulled up her chart, I was like, I know she's going to have at least 3 Gemini placements. So up at the top there in the 10th house, she has Mercury, the part of fortune, which I mean that counts, but I'm not going to count that for the sake of this. The midheaven, Chiron, and Venus. Wow. I mean that's a Gemini stellium. Not only that, but Mercury is in the other sign of its rulership, in Gemini. When a planet is in the sign of its rulership, it is also called being in its domicile, meaning that that planet is very much at home in this sign. When a planet is in its domicile, it is going to positively affect this person's chart. And not only is the planet in its sign of domicile, where it can do its best work, it is also her ruling celestial body. So, we're off to a great start. People with Mercury and Gemini tend to be very bubbly. They do tend to talk very quickly. And I will never forget that clip of her on Ellen, I think it was, where she was like reading a book like really fast. Not only that, but if you watch her podcast, she's so funny. She's so bubbly and she talks so quickly and she's like spitting out all these questions. Honestly, I think she's a great interviewer because she is kind of chaotic, but it's so much fun and she brings this very quintessential Gemini energy. So not only does she have Mercury as her ruling planet in the sign of its domicile, but it is in a same sign conjunction as her midheaven, most outward facing placement of the chart. In modern astrology, a lot of people will associate the midheaven and the 10th house with your career. In ancient astrology, and also I consider this in modern day astrology as well, the midheaven has to do with your legacy and what people remember you for. So having the midheaven in Gemini, the sign of communication, in a same sign conjunction as Mercury, the planet of communication, in the 10th house of career. Not only that, but she also has Chiron, the wounded healer, and Venus, very closely conjunct in Gemini in the 10th house. I think it's really interesting that she has Chiron in the 10th house. And one of the things that she was known for, especially early on in her career, was having these like breakdowns on camera, very much in the public eye. And Chiron is an interesting thing in everyone's chart. Your Chiron placement ideally is a place where you pull strength from from a place that you were wounded. So like I said, early on in her career, she was known for having these very public meltdowns. However, now when you hear her talk about it in interviews, she almost uses it as a source of strength, and she talks a lot about mental health. And Chiron is very closely conjunct Venus. Venus is one of the benefics. It's not the main benefic in her chart, but being so close to Chiron and also being in the 10th house, this tells me two things. Not only has she been able to preserve her public image amidst and after those public breakdowns, but Venus here really allows her to examine her self-worth through those wounds. When I look at this chart, if I was doing like a one-on-one reading for somebody who had this type of placement, I would assume that this was an evolution that happened over the course of their life. This is a karmic placement that they would have to learn from, perhaps over and over again in life, in different contexts. Venus conjunct Chiron can also be a bit volatile when having to do with romantic relationships. This person could possibly attract the wrong kind of person over and over again until they really do that deep inner work and learn, oh, maybe I'm attracting this type of person because I am so bubbly, because I don't have boundaries, because I'm putting everything on the table right away and putting myself in a vulnerable position. I could honestly talk about the stellium for like 4 hours and all the ways that I could see it playing out in someone's life. But let's look at the sun. Okay, so the sun is in Taurus. It is at close to the top of the chart. She was born at 3:02 p.m., so it was high in the sky. And it is conjunct Jupiter. And these two placements are in the 9th house. Sun conjunct Jupiter, I mean, that is a telltale sign that somebody is going to be in the spotlight. Also, Jupiter is the main benefic in this chart. Having both the Sun and Jupiter in the 9th house, Jupiter is very at home in the 9th house. The 9th house has to do with foreign travel, immigration, higher education, but the 9th house also has to do with spirituality. So a person with Jupiter in the 9th house, and also especially with the Sun in the 9th house, is going to have a special relationship to whatever form of spirituality they choose. Spirituality will be very beneficial to this person's life. Jupiter is the main benefic, so anything it touches, it expands. So like I said, not only is this a good placement for being in the spotlight, fame, but also both of these being in the 9th house. The 9th house in this context, I would say, is spirituality, connection with the divine. And I've heard her talk about how she meditates. I was actually watching the episode that she did with Terry Jo. She's like trying to get her to like meditate. She's like, no, feel the vibration. And like, period, Trish. I love that. I am a diehard Trisha Paytas fan. I have seen a lot of her videos. I saw in one of her videos that she does have like a room in her house just for meditation. All that tracks with the chart. Okay, so let's talk about this ascendant conjunct the South Node in Virgo. This is a very intense and karmic placement. Some astrologists think that the South Node has to do with past lives. And like, yeah, I like to think of the South Node as like what you are comfortable with, the characteristics that you already sort of inherently possess, maybe coming from a past life. And the North Node as what you are moving towards. So the South Node is kind of things that we already have, maybe some things that we need to release. And the North Node is our destiny, our fate, the direction that we are going. So she has the ascendant conjunct the South Node, the identity conjunct her inherent traits, the qualities that she just inherently possessed as a soul that came into this world. I feel like when I talk to parents about the North and South Node, they're like, yup. Because like if you witness like a child, their consciousness developing, you realize that people are just born with certain personality traits. So for her, both of these being in Virgo, this is a highly self-critical person. Ascendant conjunct South Node in Virgo, highly self-critical person, descendant conjunct North Node in Pisces, who is going to have to learn to let go of those really self-critical qualities through one-on-one relationships, through letting go of control, and sort of just going with the flow, trusting the intuition, the way that Pisces does. A very tall task to do in this lifetime. If I wanted to do like a past life analysis based on this nodal placement, whoever this person was in their past life, they were probably extremely stubborn. I would guess that this person maybe had a lot of fixed placements, a lot of Taurus, a lot of Scorpio, and they were probably a very controlling person who in this lifetime, their main task is to learn to let go and trust. I don't like to get too much into like the past life stuff. That's like very woo-woo. But I do like to, pontificate, consider it. Okay, so let's look at the moon placement. Moon in Aquarius, 16 degrees, not super closely conjunct, but in a same sign conjunction as Mars. And both of these placements are in the 6th house. So people with moon in Aquarius can often feel like outsiders. They don't really open up and show their true selves to people right away. In fact, emotions may make them feel kind of uncomfortable. This is not necessarily as extreme as a moon in Capricorn, but moon in Aquarius is not very comfortable with sharing their deep, intimate emotions. Emotions can make them feel uncomfortable. The ruling planet of Aquarius is Saturn. And Saturn is very much the opposite energy of the moon. It is not emotional. It is very practical. And Aquarius, being an air sign, is very intellectual. So these people with moon in Aquarius might have some sort of intellectual barrier to accessing their emotions. I'm sure if you have, for example, a Gemini moon, common issue that Gemini moons have, which is also an air sign, is that they intellectualize their feelings. They don't feel their feelings. There's a little bit of that energy here too with Aquarius moon. So Aquarius moons often have the same sort of difficulty integrating that emotional experience. I had mentioned this before, I can't remember whose chart, but in order to feel your feelings, you can't just intellectualize them. You need to feel them in your body, something that air signs are not very good at doing. They can pathologize and intellectualize all day long. But when you're operating up here, it's difficult to get that to trickle down into here, in the heart, in the belly, in the body, the place where emotions are felt. So she also has Mars in Aquarius. That's 5 degrees separating. It's not a super strong conjunction, but it is technically conjunct, adding this sort of like aggressive, uncomfortable energy to the moon. Not only that, but look at where Mars is, 21 degrees Aquarius. Look at where her ascendant is, 21 degrees Virgo. I've talked about this before. This is called a quincunx. This is a powerful angle, but it is also an uncomfortable angle in some respects. In this chart, because it is a day chart, Mars is the malefic. So she does have Mars at a tense angle to her ascendant and the south node. This is really just a pressure cooker in terms of, like I said before, letting go of that old identity, learning to trust through relationships, but also on her identity and personality in general. She has talked very publicly about having borderline personality disorder. And like I've said in previous episodes, I'm not here to diagnose, but having Mars, the planet of action and aggression, and the main malefic of the chart at a harsh angle to the ascendant, the identity, I mean, just the symbology there. Like I said, it is like a pressure cooker on the personality. And that's kind of like what borderline personality is. Now, although Mars is causing this tension for her, Mars is also trine her midheaven. Mars at 21 degrees Aquarius, an air sign, and her midheaven at 20 degrees Gemini, also an air sign. These are making a trine angle to each other. And this is a beneficial angle. This makes somebody very ambitious and competitive and just kind of relentless in the pursuit of their career. And one thing that Trisha Paytas has never done has been to give up on her career, which, like, respect. After everything that she's been through publicly, respect. All right, last thing I want to point out about this chart is she does have that millennial stellium, Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune in Capricorn. Millennials, man. They were dealt a difficult set of cards. This is in her 5th house. And this Uranus-Saturn conjunction is like very interesting because Uranus is a planet of shocks and surprises, and Saturn is the planet of discipline. Neptune is the planet of dreams, intuition, ideals. So any millennial who has all 3 of these in the sign of Capricorn, I feel like we as astrologers are going to be talking more about this as we see people of this age reach midlife. Because if this ain't a karmic placement, I don't know what is. For an entire generation. So for her in the 5th house, this is giving her Uranus a sense of spontaneity and creativity, Saturn a sense of discipline with that creativity, and Neptune just giving her these crazy ideals, these crazy ideas, really grandiose creative ideas. And not only that, but Neptune is sextile to Pluto in the 3rd house. Pluto in the 3rd house of communication. Pluto, the planet of power in the house of communication, sextile to Neptune, the planet of artistic ideals, dreams, in the house of creativity. And like her music videos, her cosplays, I mean, come on, we could see that playing out with this little sextile here and that little Capricorn millennial stellium. I would definitely say that being in the 5th house, this Capricorn stellium has benefited her in a lot of ways. Okay, let's look at the transits. First thing I want to talk about in this transiting chart is that she is about to experience her nodal return. I don't know, 6 months or so? Let me take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 months. The south node will be in the same place that it was when she was born, and it will also be conjunct her ascendant. So a nodal return kind of serves as just like a reevaluation of where you are in life at this moment. That can be a good thing. It can also be a difficult thing for some people. Looking at all the other transits, I mean, this could be a good thing for her. One of the other major transits that actually just started for her is Pluto is entering her 6th house. The 6th house has to do with routines, health, our day-to-day lives. Big transits to the 6th and 12th houses can go different ways for different people. She's going to have Uranus enter into the 10th house of career, as well as, like I said, the South Node conjunct her ascendant. All 3 of these things happening at the same time tell me that maybe she's going to want to shift her public image in some way. And this is going to be unfolding over the next 6 months because all of these transits are happening kind of like one right after the other. Pluto has to do with transformation. And like I said, the 6th house does have to do with routines and health. So maybe at this time she'll be like, you know what? I would, start doing Pilates or just transforming the way that she presents to the public. Like I said, she has transits happening to the ascendant, which is the identity, to the 10th house, which is the outward image to the public, and this transformative Pluto transit happening to her 6th house, which is going to last 20 years. And the 6th house has to do with health. But maybe that would be a pivot that she decides to make. I mean, Uranus is the planet of shocks and surprises. It's going to enter her 10th house. So we could be surprised at whatever Trisha Paytas decides to do. Right now, she also has Jupiter moving through the 10th house, and it is very closely conjunct her midheaven. And she's flying high. She's at the top of her career right now. So that all very much tracks. I'm going to do what I did for the last video, which is that I'm going to pull some tarot cards for these specific transits. For the South Node hitting her ascendant, Pluto entering her 6th house, and Uranus entering her 10th house. That combination of transformative transits that are going to be happening for her. So let's see what the tarot cards have to say. All right, so we have a very interesting spread here. The first card that I pulled was the 10 of Wands. So this is somebody who has been working very hard. This very much correlates to that Virgo ascendant conjunct the South Node. Somebody who works very hard and is always on top of their game and has this burden of responsibility. The next card that I pulled is the 4 of Wands. So that shows me that this hard work is paying off. This is a celebration of achievement and stability. This is a very harmonious card, so love that for her. So the Knight of Swords reversed. This tells me that perhaps that Uranus transit to her 10th house might bring about a bit of controversy. Swords has to do with the element of air, and air is the element of communication. And the Knight is very impulsive, especially in the reversed position. So there might be some challenges ahead for her in terms of just what she says being misconstrued or taken the wrong way with that Uranus transit to the 10th house. Now, the 10 of Swords looks like a really scary card, but when it is reversed, it means that we are healing from a painful period of life. So even though some controversy might be stirred up, instead of reverting to the old Trisha of having a public breakdown, this could indicate moving about that in a way that is more healing than the previous era. The next card I pulled is the 7 of Cups reversed. I feel like there's a lot of storylines going on in this reading, and we're just kind of touching on the energies here. But this card in the reversed position indicates clarity after confusion. So maybe after that Knight of Swords sort of impulsive miscommunication moment, having clarity on how to move forward. 8 of Swords. This has to do with old fears being stirred up from the past. This, I would say, definitely correlates to that nodal return and really allowing oneself to trust your intuition, trust the path forward. Letting go of that very self-critical mental limitation. This is an exciting card. 3 of Pentacles. This suggests that in the next 6 to 8 months, she might be working on a totally new creative project. This is a card of creative collaboration. This might be a project that none of us are really expecting. And I just pulled another card for that, the Queen of Swords. So around summer, late summer, there might be some sort of new project that she's working on. Maybe some sort of addendum to the podcast. The Swords card does have to do with communication, or maybe she will sign some sort of contract and have a totally new show on a different platform other than YouTube. I do think that in 2025 and beyond, a lot of the media that we watch, especially online media, is going to be changing significantly. And just the media landscape is going to be changing a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if she benefited from signing some sort of deal with, I don't know if there's going to be some sort of hybrid streaming network, or maybe YouTube is going to have the sorts of budgets that Hulu has now. But this is very exciting for her. Okay, and the last card I pulled, which I love, is Strength. Honestly, this is a great card to have with all of these very big transits happening all at once. I just pulled another card and I got the Hanged Man, which these two cards, I wouldn't say that they're diametrically opposed to each other, but these are two very different energies. So although there might be a lot of weight on her shoulders, She is persevering. She is taking the high road. She's getting the job done. I mean, just being in the spotlight and like having a public image, like, of course, sometimes you are going to feel like the hanged man. This also points to like the strength and resilience of her foundation and her support system. So I really love this for her as the end of the reading. There's going to be a lot of fun, interesting, and transformative stuff happening to her over the next, I mean, honestly, these transits are very long, but especially as these outer celestial bodies move into the first decan of the sign. I guess it's technically the third decan for the South Node, but either way, as they ingress into these signs. This is going to be a big deal for everyone, but because it's happening in her first house and her 10th house, these are angular houses, this is going to be big for her. Okay, so I think that's where I'm going to call it for today. If you would like a personal reading from me where I go through your natal chart like this, look at the transits, and pull some tarot cards for those transits, there is a link below where you can book. Happy Pluto in Aquarius to everyone. I guess when I'm releasing this, it's going to be like a couple weeks after Pluto ingressed into Aquarius, but still, happy Pluto in Aquarius, and I will see you next time.